Hi guys, my name is Michel with Michel Real Estate. This time we'll go through the good, the bad and the ugly of the rental agreement. So for all you renters out there, investors and future investors, this video is for you. So let's kick this video off with the period in which the rental agreement is to be held up. Which means that in most cases, in residential market at least, we'll do a 1 year renewable period, which means that we have 1 year which is fixed. That means that the tenant cannot, in any case whatsoever, cancel the agreement, unless of course the landlord agrees to do so. But we'll get into that a bit later. So 1 year renewable means that every single year the contract is renewed for the same amount of time, so another year. But you can do it for 2 years, 3 years if you wish to. It just needs to be agreed upon once you sign the first lease agreement, rental agreement. Now the renewable period has also a cancellation specification in it, which means that in most cases you have a 3 months notice as a tenant to give to your landlord if you wish to cancel your rental agreement. That means, well, let's go through an example, maybe that's a bit easier. Let's suppose that you sign a rental agreement on the 1st of January and you wish to cancel that agreement. You are obliged, since it's a 1 year fixed agreement, to stay in that property for 1 year, or at least pay for that property for 1 year. And you will have to cancel this rental agreement 3 months prior to 1st of January, which means that before the 1st of October, you need to let your landlord know that you are willing to move on to another property or buy something, whatever have you. For you landlords out there, once that period has passed, your tenant is locked in for yet another period. So that's the first thing we can mention about the termination of a rental agreement. In this way, we have basically a unilateral agreement cancellation, which means that one party wishes to cancel this agreement and move on. So respect that 3 month term and you're fine as a tenant. Landlords, you have to oblige to these kinds of demands of your tenants and move on. By the way, it's never beneficial for you as a landlord to have an angry tenant sitting in your unit, whether it be a residential one or a commercial one. But I'm drifting a bit off topic. A cancellation can also be done bilateral, which means that the landlord and the tenant agree to cancel the lease agreement. This can be done either by setting each other free, which basically means that the landlord gives the tenant the okay to just move on with their business or with their lives somewhere else. And then the landlord will look for new tenants. Now, as it goes for landlord towards tenant is not the same as tenant towards landlord if they wish to cancel. So if you are a landlord and you have a property which is rented out to someone, you cannot just vacate that person unless you have a reasonable way to do so. Now here it gets interesting. There are only 3 ways in Luxembourg to basically get the unit back to you. The first one is because you need it for personal use, or because a family relative of the 3rd degree needs the property and you are willing to provide that property for them to live in or to use. Then there's of course the next one, which is of course if there is no payment of the rent. If your tenant does not pay his rent or does not pay it properly, we will have to settle this matter in the courts, which is basically meaning that the landlord has to file a complaint with the courts and they will then be giving you the authorization to basically have the tenant removed from your unit. The third reason why a landlord can basically remove a tenant from his unit is because a major transformation has to be done on the property that is being rented out. let's take a residential unit as an example where we need to change the kitchen, bathroom, and even we have some, let's say, fire damage or water damage on the ceilings, and the entire unit needs to be completely refurbished. That is a valid ground for you as a landlord to basically tell your tenant that it is not a viable way to be living in this unit for the foreseeable future. Now, if it's just a small repair and your tenant can keep living in the unit because you just need to change some cabinets in the kitchen or change an oven, that is not a valid ground for you to be vacating your property of the tenants that you have. Impossible. The next one is raising rent. Hated by the tenants, loved by the landlords because they get more money, but the tenants, they have to pay more money. It's obvious. So how can we raise rent in Luxembourg? Well, we have some ground rules to respect, of course. First up, once a lease agreement has been signed, a landlord cannot raise rent over the next 2 years. Of course, if a tenant would move out from 1 year to another and a new tenant would move in, you can ask again market appropriate rent. But once that 2-year period has passed and your tenants are still living in the unit and you as a landlord wish to raise the rent, you can do so, but you have to stay under the 10%, right? So that means that you cannot raise rent by more than 10% or violate the 5% rule. If you don't know what the 5% rule is, I have another video about it. Check it out if you need to know more about it. And last but not least, and I get a lot of questions about this actually, is the warranty guarantee deposit. Name it what you will. It is basically a sort of insurance that you give to the landlord as a tenant in order to assure him or her or them that you will not leave the property with any damages, or if you do, then actually that deposit will be the landlord's to basically fix anything that you as a tenant have destroyed. But the most important thing to remember here, guys, and I see this way too often, you tenants sometimes think that this is rent. It is never ever rent. A deposit is a deposit, it's a guarantee, it is a warranty, it is not rent and can never be seen as such, right? So if you are moving out of the property and you know that you have put down a 2-month deposit, by the way, the max that you can ask in Luxembourg as a landlord is a 3-month deposit. But aside of that, if you want to move out in the next 2 months and you're considering, hey, I actually have a deposit of 2 months still lying there with this landlord and I'm moving out in 2 months, that's 2 months rent. So basically I won't pay any rent. He can use that money as rent covering it, but no, that's not how it works. Because we always do an inventory, and the inventory means that we check if everything is as the same condition as when the tenant moved in, right? So if you move in as a tenant, we will take pictures of everything that we see as much as we can, as best as we can. There will be a document stating what kind of furniture is in the apartment, what does it look like, is it in good, bad, or absolutely uninhabitable condition. You name it, everything will be mentioned in that document. Once that document will be reused, once the tenant moves out and everyone is in the clear about the deposit, it will be wired back to the tenant from the landlord. But guys, it is never ever rent. Please stop using deposit as rent. It annoys landlords, and you will have to appear in front of a court to show why you left this deposit there. All right, guys? Okay, that's it from me. Again, my name is Michel with Michel Real Estate. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, what have you. Of course, I would love to see you in the next video. Again, I love you guys. See you in the next one. My name is Michel with Michel Real Estate.